The elevator doors creak open. Instead of light, a wave of thick, suffocating smoke rolls out, choking, blinding, heavy with the smell of burning fabric. Somewhere above, muffled screams cut through the darkness. The crackling of flames grows closer, louder, as if the fire itself is alive, reaching downward, searching for more. This is the Garley Building. To the people of Hong Kong, it was once just another towering block of glass and concrete. But after that night, it became something else, a scar in the city's memory, a place where the walls themselves seemed to breathe with suffering. Welcome back to Voices of Fear, where true stories and chilling legends come alive. Tonight, we descend into one of Hong Kong's darkest tragedies, a fire that consumed lives and left behind a haunting that refuses to fade. Because this is not just the story of a disaster, it is a tale of restless souls, cursed ground, and a building many believe will never find peace. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Before we begin, I want to know, where are you watching from? Leave your city and country in the comments below. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Voices of Fear. Together, we'll step into the shadows of history and uncover the whispers they tried to silence. In the heart of Kowloon, Hong Kong, stood a high-rise that was meant to represent progress. The Garley Building, a towering commercial block completed in the early 1970s, rose proudly above the crowded streets, its concrete and glass a reflection of Hong Kong's booming growth. Inside, the building was alive with the hum of industry. Floors were packed with tailoring workshops, sweatshops, and offices. The clatter of sewing machines echoed through the halls. Fabric stacked in endless rolls became both wealth and livelihood. For 2 decades, Garley was a hive of labor and commerce, where workers chased opportunity and business thrived. But beneath its surface, the building carried secrets. The hallways were narrow, claustrophobic, and often dimly lit. Stairwells twisted like suffocating tunnels, and elevators rattled as if pulled by unseen hands. Workers whispered about the flickering lights, about machines that would suddenly cut off as though drained by some unseen force. Many described an unshakable heaviness in the air, a pressure that clung to the chest the longer you stayed inside. And then came the whispers from outside. Locals said the land on which Garley was built was unlucky, even cursed. In Chinese folklore, certain grounds are marked by tragedy and attract wandering spirits, restless souls searching for a place to anchor. Fires especially are feared not just as physical disasters, but as omens. A blaze is said to awaken the dead, to draw spirits back to the realm of the living. Garley seemed to carry this dark reputation from its very foundations. Minor accidents occurred with eerie regularity: small fires, unexplained injuries, sudden electrical failures. Some shrugged it off as the cost of an aging high-rise, but others claimed the building itself was warning them that it wanted to be left alone. By the mid-1990s, the Garley Building was no longer modern, but a relic. Its safety systems were outdated, fire exits confusing, and stairwells so narrow that escape would be nearly impossible in a crisis. Yet it remained full of life. Tailors, clerks, cleaners, families, all going about their days unaware of what was coming. A disaster was waiting to happen. And in November of 1996, it did. It began as an ordinary morning. Workers filed into the Garley Building just as they had for years. Tailors bent over their sewing tables, clerks carrying folders, cleaners pushing carts down narrow halls. The building buzzed with its usual rhythm, the rattle of typewriters, the clatter of machines, the hum of elevators. But within moments, that routine shattered. A spark, small, almost invisible, but sparks are hungry. They seek what can feed them. And in Garley, fuel was everywhere. Cloth stacked from floor to ceiling, wooden partitions, glue, papers, aging wires pulsing with current. At first, a few workers shouted for fire extinguishers. Some believed they could put it out quickly, but the flames moved faster than human hands could react. They licked upward, feeding on fabric, then leapt across entire floors in seconds. By the time people realized what was happening, the building was already turning into a vertical furnace. Smoke began to snake through ventilation shafts, thick, black, and toxic. It filled corridors, seeping under doors. Workers inhaled it before they even saw the flames. Their lungs burned, their vision blurred. Panic set in. Elevators jammed without warning. Trapped inside, men and women pounded their fists against steel doors, their cries muffled by layers of smoke. Witnesses recall hearing the thud of fists, the frantic clang of heels, and then, chillingly, silence. Those who reached the stairwells were met with a nightmare. The air inside was a wall of heat, so violent it stripped skin and melted clothing. Survivors described bodies collapsing mid-descent, suffocating, gasping for air that wasn't there. Some fought their way to windows, desperate for oxygen. Glass shattered, and choking figures leaned out, gulping the city's polluted air as if it were pure salvation. But the fire was merciless. It climbed upward, licking the outer walls, catching those who leaned too far. Onlookers below could only watch in terror as men and women appeared at the broken windows. Some waved, crying for help. Others made a decision no one should ever have to make. They leapt, choosing the pavement below over the furnace behind them. One by one, their bodies struck the streets of Kowloon, the screams of witnesses mixing with the roar of the fire. Inside, chaos reigned. Floors buckled, ceilings collapsed. The building groaned as if alive, as if in agony with those trapped inside. Firefighters arrived, battling not just the inferno, but the impossible structure itself. Blocked stairwells, locked doors, windows that refused to open. Their ladders couldn't reach the highest floors, where people still pounded on the glass, faces blackened with soot. For hours, Kowloon was consumed by horror. Families gathered in the streets, praying their loved ones would emerge, but many never did. When the fire was finally contained, the true scale of tragedy was revealed. Over 40 souls were lost. Many burned beyond recognition, their final moments carved into the walls of the Garley Building. Dozens more were scarred, injured, or forever haunted by what they had seen. The streets outside became a place of mourning. Charred fabric, broken glass, and the faint smell of smoke lingered for days, even weeks. Survivors spoke in hushed voices, unable to shake the echoes of fists pounding, of voices crying, of colleagues who had vanished in the flames. But the tragedy did not end with the fire, for the Garley Building refused to rest. In the months that followed the fire, the Garley Building stood silent, its walls blackened, windows shattered, and stairwells coated in soot. To most, it was a grave. To others, it was something worse. Locals began to whisper that the building was cursed, Survivors who returned to retrieve belongings spoke of hearing phantom footsteps echoing in stairwells that were completely empty. Some even heard the faint, muffled screams of those who had never escaped, echoes of desperation repeating endlessly. Elevators became a source of fear. Workers reported seeing them move on their own, stopping at floors no one had called for. The doors would open, and instead of people, witnesses described a chilling sight, a wave of smoke seeping out, thick and acrid, just like the day of the fire. Yet there was no fire, no smoke, only the memory of it. Some claimed that late at night, if you stood too close to the building, you could still smell burning fabric, that distinct chemical stench of cloth and skin consumed by flames. Even years later, when the walls had been cleaned and windows replaced, the smell would return without warning, clinging to the nostrils like a curse. Taxi drivers in Kowloon told some of the most chilling stories. Many refused late-night pickups near the building altogether. They claimed they'd see figures waving desperately from the windows above. Yet, when they looked again, those windows were nothing but blackened glass and shadow. One driver swore that a young woman once flagged his cab outside Garley, her clothes singed, her face pale. He pulled over to help, but when he looked back into the rearview mirror, the seat was empty. In the wake of these reports, religious groups gathered outside the building to perform rituals. They burned incense, offered food, and chanted prayers, attempting to soothe the restless dead. But those who lived or worked nearby insisted the shadows lingered. Night guards claimed to hear the sound of sewing machines clattering from abandoned workshops, even though the floors had long been gutted. Others spoke of elevators refusing to work at all until they carried offerings inside. Rumors spread that the spirits of the Garley building were trapped in their final moments, replaying their terror over and over. Some believed these ghosts weren't just lost. They were angry, tethered to the place where their lives had been stolen. Even today, decades later, Hong Kong locals speak of the Garley Fire not only as a tragedy, but as a haunting. Parents warn children not to walk near the site at night. Some avoid even saying its name, fearing it might summon the restless. The Garley building is gone now, but its legacy is not. Because in the heart of Kowloon, people still whisper, the fire never truly went out. Skeptics argue that the hauntings of the Garley building were not supernatural at all. They say the cries and shadows reported in the months after the fire were echoes of trauma, psychological scars carved so deeply into survivors and the community that they manifested as ghosts of their own making. The human mind, after all, can replay horrors long after the flames are gone. Survivors admitted that even years later, the smell of smoke or the creak of an elevator door could send them back into the inferno. Perhaps the phantom screams were not spirits, but memory, too painful to silence. But others are not so quick to dismiss the whispers. They point to the warning signs, the flickering lights, the uneasy stillness in stairwells, the sense of heaviness workers spoke of long before the fire. Some believe the Garley building was doomed from the beginning, a vessel for restless souls, drawn to tragedy as if by design. And perhaps the greatest tragedy was not just the fire itself, but that no one listened. No one heeded the signs, the superstitions, the shadows, until it was far too late. What do you believe? Were the hauntings of the Garley building nothing more than grief, trauma, and superstition woven together by fear? Or did the fire awaken something darker, something that still lingers unseen in Kowloon's shadows? Thank you for walking with us through this story and for staying until the end. If this descent into the unknown has left its mark on you, make sure you're subscribed to Voices of Fear so you never miss the next tale waiting in the dark. Because next time, we'll uncover another tragedy, one even more mysterious. A place where death and the supernatural are not separate stories, but the same chilling thread. Until then, don't step into the darkness alone.